Recording my wife on the phone, I heard her tell her friend, "I wish Griffin would just vanish so I could be with Roland forever." I smiled and granted her wish in the most devastating way possible. My hands still smelled like pine wood and varnish when I quietly pushed open the front door of our Boise home that Tuesday afternoon in March 2023. The furniture delivery to the Morrison family had been canceled last minute. Their check bounced, so I'd come home 3 hours early from my custom woodworking shop. I expected to find Jenna in the kitchen, preparing dinner, maybe humming along to that jazz playlist she loved. Instead, I heard her voice carrying through the house from the kitchen, sharp and animated in a way I hadn't heard in months. My calloused fingers immediately found my phone, pressing record without hesitation. Something in her tone told me I needed to capture whatever came next. "Sarah, I'm telling you, I can't stand him anymore." Jenna's voice cut through the silence like broken glass. 15 years I've wasted with that man. What do I have to show for it? This modest little house and that old truck he still uses to deliver furniture. No kids, nothing. The cruelty in her voice made my chest tighten. No kids because of her fertility problems, not mine. Yet I'd stood by her through every failed treatment, every negative test, every tear-soaked night when she blamed herself. I'd spent $47,000 over 8 years on specialists, treatments, and procedures that never worked. "He always puts me first like a puppy," she sneered, and I heard her actually laugh at my devotion. "But my heart, it's with Roland now. He treats me like the queen I am." Roland Nash, the pharmaceutical rep who'd been coming around our neighborhood for the past 6 months. Always friendly, always charming, always driving that expensive BMW. I'd never suspected anything when I'd see him talking to Jenna by our mailbox, or when she'd mention running into him at the grocery store. "I wish Griffin would just vanish, you know." Jenna's voice turned dreamy, wistful. "Just disappear so I could be with Roland forever. No messy divorce, no splitting assets, no explanations to anyone. Just gone like he never existed." That's when something crystallized in my mind. The woman who'd spent 15 years as my wife had just given me the perfect blueprint. She wanted me to vanish. Fine. I'd give her exactly what she wished for. Let me explain how I got here financially, because the numbers matter for what happened next. My custom furniture business, Ward Woodworks, brings in approximately $180,000 annually. I own our house outright, a $320,000 property I'd bought in 2008, 2 years before we married. I've got $95,000 in business accounts, $67,000 in personal savings, and a workshop full of tools and equipment worth another $85,000. Total net worth, roughly $567,000. More importantly, everything was legally mine. The house was purchased before our marriage, making it separate property under Idaho law. The business was registered solely in my name, built with my skills and my investment. Even our joint checking account had been funded primarily by my income, with detailed bank records proving the source of every deposit. I'd been supporting Jenna's yoga instructor, certification, and wellness blog for the past 3 years, covering roughly $18,000 annually in course fees, retreat costs, and equipment. She contributed maybe $8,000 per year from occasional substitute teaching jobs. The financial dependency was complete, documented, and about to become very relevant. After Jenna hung up with Sarah, I waited a full minute before making noise at the front door, jingling keys, stomping my boots, calling out my usual, "Honey, I'm home." I walked into the kitchen with a smile, kissing her cheek like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. For the next 3 weeks, I became the husband Jenna had always claimed to want. I brought her morning coffee with extra cream, left sweet notes in her yoga bag, kissed her goodbye every morning, like a man deeply in love. But behind my gentle smile, I was orchestrating the most devastating strategic response in modern relationship history. My first call went to my brother Brent in Colorado, a successful realtor who specialized in discreet, high-value property transactions. "I need the house sold fast, cash only, no public listings," I told him during my lunch break the next day. "Can you handle it quietly?" Brent didn't ask questions. The Ward brothers had always protected each other. "Give me 2 weeks. I know investors looking for move-in ready properties in Boise. What's your timeline?" 3 weeks maximum. I need this done before she realizes what's happening." The second call went to Eli Jacobs in Montana, my old high school friend, who'd become one of the state's most ruthless divorce attorneys. Eli's reputation for destroying cheating spouses in court was legendary. "I've got audio evidence," I said simply, explaining the recording I'd captured. "Griffin, with what you're describing, we can move in 2 weeks, maybe less. She won't know what hit her. Email me that recording tonight." My third move was pure strategic genius. I started photographing every piece of furniture in our home, pieces I'd crafted with my own hands over 15 years. Every custom cabinet, every hand-carved table, every built-in bookshelf, all of it legally my intellectual property and craftsmanship. I documented serial numbers, took detailed photos showing my maker's marks, and compiled receipts for every tool and material used. I created a comprehensive spreadsheet titled Marital Asset Documentation, Column A, Item Description, Column B, Purchased on creation date, Column C, Funding source with bank records, Column D, Current estimated value, Column E, Legal ownership status. The total came to $127,000 in furniture and fixtures that were unequivocally mine. Meanwhile, Jenna floated through our house like a woman already free. She hummed while cooking dinner, smiled more, even initiated intimacy for the first time in months. Though I now knew she was probably thinking about Roland, she had no idea her devoted husband was photographing serial numbers on appliances, documenting every asset, and transferring money into a separate account Eli had established. "You seem happier lately," she mentioned one evening, curled against me on the couch I'd built from reclaimed oak. "Just grateful for what we have," I replied, stroking her hair while calculating how many days until everything would be finalized. Jenna interpreted my calmness as resignation. She grew bolder with Roland, staying out later for yoga workshops and wellness retreats that didn't exist. I knew this because I'd started tracking her location through our shared phone plan, something she'd forgotten we'd set up for safety purposes years earlier. She even started bringing Roland's gifts home: expensive perfume, silk scarves, jewelry that my income could never afford. "My yoga instructor gave this to all the advanced students," she'd lie, showing off a diamond bracelet that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. I would smile and tell her how beautiful she looked. Then I'd photograph the gift and add it to the evidence file Eli was building. Each expensive item became proof of her affair and her lies. The house sale moved faster than expected. Brent found a cash buyer, a young tech executive from Seattle, who wanted a move-in-ready property for his new Boise job. No inspections needed, no contingencies, just clean money for a clean transaction. The offer came in at $315,000, just $5,000 under asking price. I spent 18 days perfecting every detail, while Jenna remained completely oblivious. I consulted with a private investigator who confirmed Roland's identity, marital status, and employment. Roland Nash, 42, married to Patricia Nash for 16 years, 2 children ages 12 and 14. He lived in a $580,000 house in Boise's North End and had been conducting affairs for at least 3 years based on the investigator's findings. I documented Jenna's daily routine, her lies about where she went, and her increasing boldness in conducting the affair. The investigator provided photos of them together at hotels, restaurants, and even Roland's office after hours. I transferred $89,000 from our joint accounts into the new account Eli had established, leaving exactly $1,247, enough to cover 1 month of utilities and groceries. I documented every transaction with timestamps and explanations. The money represented my business income over the past 14 months, easily provable through tax records and client payments. The closing was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon, while Jenna would be at her regular yoga session, which I now knew was actually her weekly rendezvous with Roland at the Hampton Inn on Vista Avenue. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzling. I sat on the couch looking at the house for the last time, while Jenna showered upstairs, humming that same tune she'd been singing for weeks. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was preparing for her afternoon with Roland while I prepared to grant her deepest wish. "I'll be late tonight," she called from our bedroom. "Advanced workshop runs until 9. "Be safe, honey," I replied, my voice steady as granite. At exactly a.m., I signed the final closing documents at Brent's partner's office in downtown Boise. The house, every beam, every floorboard, every custom detail I'd poured my soul into, officially belonged to Michael and Sarah Smith, a young couple from Seattle. The cash deposit hit my new account within minutes, $315,000 clean money. By noon, I'd loaded my pickup with 15 years of memories condensed into 12 boxes. Tools, photo albums, my grandfather's woodworking set, and essential documents. Nothing that screamed abandonment, just the essentials a man might take for a weekend trip. My final act was placing a manila envelope on the kitchen island where Jenna always dropped her keys. Inside, divorce papers signed and notarized, the flash drive containing her recorded confession, and a single handwritten note. You said you can't stand me anymore and wished I would vanish. Consider your wish granted. The house has been sold. You have 24 hours to vacate. Griffin. At p.m., I drove my aging Dodge pickup out of Boise for the last time, heading north on Highway 95 toward my new life in Missoula, Montana. No dramatic exit, no fanfare, just a quiet man disappearing exactly as his wife had fantasized. Meanwhile, Jenna spent her afternoon with Roland at their usual hotel, texting me lies about yoga poses and meditation techniques while planning their weekend getaway. She had no idea I was already 200 miles north, heading toward my new life. Jenna returned home at p.m., keys jingling as she entered through the front door. The house felt different, quieter somehow. But she was too distracted by Roland's text about their weekend plans to notice immediately. She microwaved leftover Chinese takeout and scrolled through her phone, crafting more lies about where she'd been. It wasn't until she went to grab a bottle of water from the kitchen that she saw the envelope. Her name was written across it in my careful handwriting, the same script that had penned hundreds of love notes over the years. She opened it casually, expecting maybe an apology for my recent moodiness, or another one of my sentimental gestures. The divorce papers hit her like a physical slap. Her hands shook as she read the note. Then she saw the flash drive. She knew what was on it before she even plugged it into her laptop. Her own voice filled the kitchen, cruel and calculating, fantasizing about my disappearance. I can't stand him anymore, her recorded voice played back in perfect damning detail. That's when someone knocked on the front door. Jenna's legs nearly buckled as the knocking grew more insistent. Her mind raced. Was it me returning? Had I changed my mind? She yanked open the door to find two well-dressed strangers holding clipboards and legal documents. Mrs. Ward, I'm Michael Smith, and this is my wife Sarah. We're the new owners of this property. We completed closing this morning and need you to vacate within 24 hours per the purchase agreement. The words hit her like a freight train. What are you talking about? This is my house. Sarah handed her a thick folder. Ma'am, your husband sold the property this morning. Here's the bill of sale, deed transfer, and court documentation. Everything was legally finalized at a.m. Jenna's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. My signature was on every page, notarized, official, final. I'd sold our home, the home she'd lived in for 15 years, without saying a word. There must be some mistake, she whispered, but the legal documents were ironclad. I had owned the property solely before our marriage. Idaho law was clear. It remained my separate property throughout our marriage. We're sorry for the inconvenience, Michael said gently. But we have movers coming tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. You'll need to remove all personal belongings by then. The door closed, leaving Jenna alone in a house that was no longer hers. Panic set in immediately. She called her sister Rebecca in Portland. Becca, I need somewhere to stay. Griffin's lost his mind. Jenna, I can't. David's mother is visiting for 3 weeks and we're already sleeping the kids in the living room. We don't have space. Click. She tried her friend Sarah from yoga class, the same Sarah she'd been confiding in about her affair. Sarah, remember our conversation about Griffin? Well, he's actually... Jenna, I'm not comfortable getting involved in marital drama. I think you should work things out with your husband. Good luck, though. Another dead end. Fighting hysteria, she dialed Roland. Her escape plan, her future, the man who treated her like a queen. Roland, something terrible has happened. Griffin found out about us somehow, and I need... His voice was ice cold, professional, distant. Jenna, I can't help you. My wife and kids are back from Connecticut tomorrow. This thing between us, it was just physical, nothing more. But you said you loved me. You said we'd be together. I said what you needed to hear. Look, you're a beautiful woman, but I'm not leaving my family. I never was. Patricia and I are working on our marriage. The line went dead. Jenna dropped the phone. The full magnitude of her situation crashed over her like a tsunami. Roland had used her. Her sister wouldn't help her. Her friends had abandoned her. I had systematically destroyed her entire support system, while she'd been texting her married lover and fantasizing about my disappearance. She collapsed onto the kitchen floor, the same kitchen where she'd mockingly wished I would vanish forever. Her wish had come true. But instead of freedom with Roland, she was left with nothing. No husband, no home, no lover, no friends, no family support. Just 24 hours to figure out how to rebuild a life she'd carelessly thrown away. While Jenna sat broken on her kitchen floor, I was 400 miles away in Missoula, Montana, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. I'd rented a small cabin on the outskirts of town for $200 monthly. Nothing fancy, just clean walls and honest silence. No yoga mats cluttering the hallway. No expensive perfumes that weren't gifts from me. No lies disguised as love. My phone had been buzzing all night with calls from unknown numbers. Jenna, probably borrowing phones from the extended stay motel where she'd found temporary shelter. I'd blocked her number the day I left Boise. I didn't answer any of them. I had nothing left to say to the woman who'd wished for my disappearance. Within a week, word spread through Missoula about the quiet furniture maker who'd arrived from Boise. My first commission came from a local restaurant owner who needed custom tables that could withstand heavy commercial use. "You built all this yourself?" the owner asked, running his hands over my sample pieces. "Every joint, every finish," I replied simply. The man handed me a deposit check for $3,200, twice what I usually charge in Boise. "When can you start?" For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. Meanwhile, the consequences of Jenna's choices compounded daily. She'd found temporary shelter at an extended stay motel that charged $89 per night, money she didn't have. Her substitute teaching brought in maybe $400 per week when jobs were available. Roland had blocked her number after she'd made the mistake of calling him at his pharmaceutical company, begging him to leave his wife. 3 months later, in June 2023, Eli updated me on the legal aftermath during our weekly phone call. She tried to contest the house sale through a different lawyer, claims emotional distress and abandonment, won't hold up in court. We have the recording, the documented affair, and clear ownership history. "Any settlement demands?" I asked, sanding a piece of cherry wood that would become a dining table for a young Missoula couple's first home. Her lawyer suggested $50,000 for transition assistance. I told them to review the audio recording again and consider whether they really wanted this case to go public. They dropped all claims within a week. 6 months later, in September 2023, I learned through mutual acquaintances that Jenna was living in a cramped studio apartment in Boise's least desirable neighborhood, working double shifts at a call center to pay $750 monthly rent. Her yoga certification had lapsed. Her wellness blog sat abandoned. Roland had moved his family to Portland for a new job, cutting all ties to Boise and the mess he had left behind. Meanwhile, my workshop in Missoula had become legendary among Montana's custom furniture circles. The quiet craftsman who charged premium prices and delivered perfection had a 6-month waiting list. I was pulling in $240,000 annually, a 33% increase from my Boise income. In October 2023, I started dating Claire, a local librarian and widow who appreciated handwritten notes and morning coffee, who understood that real love was built through daily kindnesses, not grand gestures. Claire knew about my past. She'd listened without judgment as I explained why I'd left Boise, why I sometimes grew quiet when certain songs played on the radio. "Do you miss her?" Claire asked one evening as we watched sunset paint the Montana sky. I considered the question honestly. I miss who I thought she was, but that woman never existed. By December 2023, Claire and I had moved in together. She brought her extensive book collection and her 2 cats, Hemingway and Austin. I brought my woodworking skills and my hard-earned wisdom about the difference between love and dependency. 2 years later, in March 2025, I learned through a former neighbor that Jenna was still in Boise, still working at the call center, still living alone in that studio apartment. She'd gained weight, lost her yoga glow, and aged in a way that spoke of regret and missed opportunities. The woman who'd once mocked my devotion now understood its true value. The recording that destroyed my marriage had taught me something profound. Jenna hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd never appreciated the man who'd stood by her through infertility struggles, who'd built our home with his own hands, who'd loved her unconditionally when she couldn't love herself. My response hadn't been about punishment. It had been about freedom, hers and mine. She was finally free to pursue the sophisticated life she'd always claimed to want without the burden of a devoted husband. I was free to build a life with someone who understood that loyalty, craftsmanship, and quiet strength were treasures, not weaknesses. The most devastating part of my strategic response wasn't the financial ruin or social isolation I'd left Jenna to face. It was the slow realization that she'd thrown away the one man who'd loved her completely, flaws and all. Some lessons come through punishment, others come through loss. Jenna learned that the love of a good man, once lost, can never be reclaimed. I learned that the most powerful response to betrayal isn't destroying someone who wronged you. It's becoming the version of yourself they'll never have access to again. Today, Claire and I are planning our wedding for this fall. She wears the engagement ring I crafted myself, a simple band with a Montana sapphire I selected personally. It's nothing like the expensive jewelry Roland used to buy Jenna's affection. It's honest, handmade, and built to last forever. Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from someone who doesn't value what you offer. The strategy worked perfectly because I documented everything, consulted professionals, and executed with precision rather than emotion. When someone wishes you would disappear, sometimes the smartest move is to grant their wish. On your terms, with your timeline, protecting your interests every step of the way.